Good evening, everybody. Dear all yoga lovers, Raj Yoga Center and Embassy of India, Muscat welcomes you all to the enlightening session with Sister Gopi. So these are the series of programs celebrating International Day of Yoga. So today's topic is an integrated life for strength and immunity. So I would like to introduce today's speaker. Sister Gopi is an international speaker and spiritual educator, a practitioner of Raj Yoga meditation with the Brahmakumaris for over 40 years. She travels extensively, emphasizing spiritual values and growth as an essential ingredient in sustainable social economic development and organizational effectiveness. In this capacity, she has spoken and run seminars of government platforms, ministries, business, social organizations, and NGOs worldwide. She has over 25 years of experience coordinating projects promoting the inner principles of leadership for young leaders, women leaders, senior executives, and thought leaders from diverse fields. She has overseen the growth of International Youth Forum, and also she coordinates Choose Change Become in Oman. So I just welcome her and uh, invite her to share on today's topic. Sister Gopi.
Thank you. And many thanks.
So I would like to request you to unmute here. You are not audible.
Can you hear me now?
No, it's not audible.
I'm unmuted. My sound is working. Is there something from your end, maybe? My sound is working. I can hear you. So maybe your speakers. Shall I continue?
Yes. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this warm welcome and also this invitation to meet everybody in Oman in such a special time. We are living through unprecedented times in humanity. And as I continue to speak to people across the globe, it seems that amidst the fear and also the kind of fluctuation that such events bring, that the COVID crisis has brought on, it's also bringing out something very, very positive in people. People are talking about having the opportunity to spend more time with their families. And of course, that too could have a downside because you're with the same person 24/7. But it also is an opportunity to work through things that we've perhaps never worked over, we've just glossed over. And it feels like time is giving us the opportunity to sort ourselves out, to sort our relationships out, and especially to sort our lives out. So much of the product of our health is a combined effort at many levels. And that's why you can't tackle health of the body in a mechanical way alone, or a biological way alone, or perhaps even a chemical way alone. When we talk about biological, we talk about exercise, we talk about dealing with different organs of the body. When we talk about chemical, we're talking about food combinations that create minerals and vitamins in the body. We talk about medicine. And so what I feel at this point in time is that we need to take a close look at every aspect of our life, because our immunity has a very, very deep connection with our sense of self-respect. And our sense of self-respect has a very deep connection with what we think, what we speak, and what we do. And if there is a disconnection between these three elements, so if we think this much, and of what we think, we speak this much, and of what we speak, we do just this much, it creates an imbalance inside us. If we tend to overthink and overspeak, it creates a burden of waste inside us, inside our conscience. If we do things that go against our basic human value systems, and we speak lies, we tell untruths, then we add more burden to our conscience. And that subtle burden that we add to our conscience has a powerful effect on the balance of the body. The body is an instrument that will play out everything that is in the spirit. And so what is happening to anybody physically at this point in time is an honest reality and a reflection of how they've been looking after themselves inside. Now, of course, all of us come with some kind of baggage, some kind of burden. Some of us are on an enlightening journey to get rid of that baggage, but we have to reconcile with what we've created in our past. But I think for strengthening our sense of resilience and our immunity in these times, we do have to look at strengthening something else that is deeply at its roots, and that's our self-respect. And in a minute, I will go on to explain the components of self-respect that help to create an integrated life. Because, we may live in isolation. I just live my life for myself. Well, actually, you don't. You're part of a much bigger communal fabric. And everything you think and speak and do is having an effect on people that you're connected with, whether you believe it or not. It's because at the end of the day, we are all energies of being, right? We are thinking, living beings, and that energy emits a powerful vibration. And that vibration can help uplift everybody in our connection, or it can help drag people down in our connection. It's really hard to believe sometimes, but I've often seen this, where if I'm thinking about someone, and if I'm not thinking very good thoughts about them, then when I actually meet them, there'll be an energy between us. It's almost like they've picked up that energy and they're not comfortable with me in my presence, and I won't be comfortable with them in their presence. Even if they have nothing against me, they'll feel, oh, there's something here, because my thoughts have generated a negative energy around my aura that they are feeling and picking up. And so everything we think, we are communicating that energy out into the universe as a field. And accordingly, we will be responded to on the basis of that. So, self-respect is a very deep subject. And I want to take that up in relation to the body, self-respect in relation to people, and self-respect in relation to a task, especially what we have to do. So a little bit about that later. But in the first instance, I do want to speak about the subject of sorrow and trauma and pain and emotions, especially a little bit. Very recently, of course, we've been watching in the news about George Floyd and the Black movement and the anti-racism movement. And of course, it's been a very powerfully heartening time to see so many voices for equality. And a recent conversation with a colleague of mine who was reading a particular book, and I have to confess, I can't remember what the name of it was. But within that book, as it explores the trauma of Black lives through humanity, the author discovered that the trauma actually sits in the body. because the issue with race is connected with the skin, and skin is part of the body. And so the feeling of the trauma of being discriminated against, of being separated, of being excluded because of the color of your skin, that trauma lives in your body. And so there's something about that really made me start to think very powerfully that, you know, we tend to see our lives through just a human body experience, when actually there is another level of experience that's open to us that is perhaps bigger than just the human experience. Because sometimes if we just limit ourselves to being humans, we forget about the power of the being. And we then subject ourselves to being victims of the human experience. Now, so many things happen in the human experience. It's a polarized experience. So there's right, there's wrong, there's good, there's bad, there's victory, there's defeat, there's praise, there's defamation. And so if we just live on the human frequency, which is the physical frequency or the body frequency, our consciousness just lives at that frequency, then we're always swinging from one end to the other. We'll be really happy if somebody praises us. We'll be really down if somebody defames us, right? And then at the same time, you know, it will be really happy if we get victory, we're victorious in something. And then on the other side, we'll be unable to face our failures. So there is this thing that when our consciousness is trapped in just a human frequency, then we are subjecting ourselves to being victims of a human experience. You know, and in this case, it's our race, our color skin. And that's what affects the core of our self-respect. Because in that moment, if I identify myself just only by the color of my skin, then what I'm starting to say is that this is who I am. And so everything that happens to my skin happens to me. And actually, perhaps that's part of the truth, but not the whole truth. That when we actually step back and we look at the being element of a human, then we start to realize that the being element has the ability to rise up above human polarity and come to a place of compassion, of forgiveness, of peace, of truth, of love, of mercy. These are very, very powerful components of the frequency of being. Being something inside. I am a being inside this human skin, having a human experience. But who am I? And I think as a human race, we are now confronting identity at a very, very deep level. Because if we do not confront the subject of identity, then we cannot look after ourselves well. We can be doing all the exercises in the world. We can be doing all the right diets in the world. We can be eating all the right medicines. But if our center of self-respect is displaced away from our being, then very little effect happens of the exercises we do. But whether they're hatha yoga exercises, whether they're plain cardiovascular exercises, whether they're any type of exercises, because attitude plays an incredible role in revitalizing, transforming, reforming physiology. It plays a huge role. If you don't change your attitude, you won't be able to transform your health. And I've been practicing pranayama lately, and it's been an extremely helpful practice. And I've noticed that parallel to that, as I sustain my internal being experience, where I finish my pranayama with about 10 minutes of meditation or 15, it completely enhances the effect of the exercise on the body. But if after my pranayama, I continue to rush about my daily work, then I've just cancelled the effects of that particular activity on my body. And so combining the being experience with the human experience is essential to maintain a balanced sense of self-respect and a balanced immune system. Because psychosomatically, immunity and strengthened immunity is connected with feeling good inside myself. And feeling good is not just a hormonal experience. Yes, your hormones will go what they do, but feeling good is a mood experience. It's a mental well-being experience. It's an emotional well-being experience. In the health field, they often talk about 3 dynamics we have to cover to be able to support complete health. And of course, it's biological, the body, the physics, whatever exercise I need daily to maintain the physical organs. And then it's the chemical, it's the food, it's the medicine, the alternative medicine I may be taking that creates chemical reactions that strengthens the amount of vitamins, minerals, amino acids, etc. that I have in the body. And then the third component is mental and emotional. And if I was to put a percentage on all 3 of them, the biggest percentage would be with the mental and emotional. Because if that is blocked and stuck, then the other 2 don't have an effect. The other 2 have a maximum effect of 10%, 15% on total health. Mental well-being and emotional well-being have almost 60% effect on well-being, especially on an immune system response. I have been with several people over many, many years, be they gone through depression, my own family through cancer, and I've noticed souls, individuals that have a very solid sense of their own self and self-respect. They pass through the disease much quicker and the treatment much quicker than those who don't. Those who don't, their own thinking processes, their own negative belief systems drag them down into an energy that just pauses the whole immune system and freezes the ability of the cellular response to growth. Because every time I think to myself or I say to myself, I can't do something, in that moment, the cells in my body are listening to this. And as they're listening to this, they will respond with that same energy because that's the instruction they are receiving. I can't do this, so they just stop. And that's why at a very, very deep level, when we look at an integrated life, we have to look at the basis of our self-respect at a much broader level and to understand that that's the key to immunity. So when I look at self-respect at the level of the self, for me, it's very simply, to what extent have I cultivated clean feelings, clean thoughts for myself and for others? This is a massive exercise that requires concentration power. Within Raja Yoga meditation, we have a number of different practices that support mental and intellectual cleanliness and concentration. Because when you have a practice that keeps your mind clean and your intellect focused, then you can rise above your old habits of thinking and feeling. And if you don't have a practice that works with your intellect and your mind, then your mind and intellect are just slaves to your past habits. They're slaves to the influence of other people's ideas and projections. And so they're like, they don't have a rudder, they don't have an anchor, and they just move and float about. And so within Raja Yoga meditation, one of the basic practices that's very, very helpful for mental cleanliness and intellectual focus is the practice of shedding the consciousness of the body. We call it the bodiless stage. And this is a pose that's required for the intellect. So just as Hatha Yoga has various poses for the body, There are certain poses we need to put our mind and intellect in and hold that in that pose for a period of time. And as we do that continually every day, and we make time for that, you will start to see a stronger functioning unit up here. When the mind becomes stronger and feels good, and the intellect stays more focused and concentrated, you are suddenly in charge of your life and your human experience. You can choose how you want to be. But if up here you have no control over any of these things, and they're heavy and they're depressed and they're all over the place, then you have no control over the rest of this chariot either. So there's a couple of practices I'd like to introduce to you at this stage. And the first is very much this experience of being bodiless, of just shedding the consciousness of the body. So I'd like you to join me for a few moments. And wherever you're sitting, sit up straight. And just take a couple of deep breaths in through your nose and slowly out through your mouth. And as you do so, allow your body to relax. And just feel for a few moments the energy inside your body. And as you breathe in and out, visualize yourself inhaling in peace and breathing away any tension in your body. And now very slowly, take a step inward into the room of your mind and visualize this room as a control room with lots of different switches to different parts of your body. And so lean in and start to switch off the energy to your feet and legs. Switch it off. All cellular, electrical impulses, cellular connections cease. Then your knees and your thighs, switch off that switch. And then your stomach and your chest, switch off that switch. And it's starting to get quieter and quieter in the control room. And then the switch to your shoulders, arms, hands. Switch that off. And then the switch for your neck and your face. And as you switch all of that off, you are left as yourself, as a being of energy in the silence of that control room. Everything has become completely quiet. And I, the thinking, living being, am a being of energetic light. I've switched off the awareness of the physical costume. It's a bit like taking it off, taking off your clothes, and I'm left as an energy of light. And I visualize myself as this being of light that is free to be without any pulls from the physical. A beautiful being of peace. And I say to myself inside 3 times slowly, I am a being of peace. I concentrate all the energy of my mind and intellect into this. I am a being of peace. I am a being of peace. In this moment now, I am light. And then when you're ready, lean in and begin to switch on all the different parts of your body on again. Starting with your face and neck, shoulders, arms, hands, chest, back, stomach, your legs, your knees, your feet. And now you're connected back with the awareness of your body, but you're more peaceful inside. And this peace, and from this place of peace, you can choose what experience you want to have through this body. You can choose what you take in through your senses from the world outside. From this place of peace, you are the master creator. Thank you. When we talk about yoga, yoga means connection. And of course, there are different levels of yoga. Connection with the body, connection with breath. Whereas Raj Yoga is connecting with the highest level of my inner being, the highest thoughts inside me, and the highest frequency of my inner being. Raj Yoga helps us to elevate and concentrate our mental and intellectual energies into a focus that allows us to keep our frequency of energy high. And so if we practice this pose of peace every day, just for 10 minutes, imagine the impact it would have on our entire system. Then we don't have to work so hard physically. Yeah? Because I think as we lose sight of the mental, emotional, and consciousness element of the game, then we start to see everything as compartments. We break everything down. And we don't realize that in order to work holistically, we have to work from a different level. So as we strengthen our ability to be and hold ourselves in being, then we automatically find everything else finds its order in our body, in our lives, in our relationships. Right? So when we come to the subject of self-respect in relationships, so the first self-respect is increasing the energy of myself, my peace, my love, feeling myself, diving deep into it, holding myself in that pose so that I nourish myself with that energy. And then the second part of our self-respect is very much defined by our human relationships. This is a big thing for many people. How do you hold yourself in a relationship? Often many people talk about expectations, not being able to manage expectations within their families. There's traumas, there's relationship breakdowns. And what does self-respect look like in a relationship? Especially for women. Women have a tendency to always put themselves at the bottom of the priority list. Everybody else comes first and they come last, if at all they're on the list. And if you are a young woman or a woman listening to this, I will encourage you to write a priority list and put your name at the top of that list and just consider, what would your life look like if you gave yourself time and energy first? So that's just something I'm going to throw out there, because I think that's very important for us to consider. One of the reasons why we feel suppressed and why we feel pushed down in relationships is because we've put ourselves at the bottom of the priority list. And we've bought into an illusion in our relationships that if we please people, then, if we spend all our time and energy making them happy, then we'll be okay. And actually quite the opposite happens. We end up doing so much for them and they don't appreciate it and they don't thank us for it. And we are left feeling worse and worse and worse, unappreciated, unacknowledged. And so there must be another way. We have to cultivate our happiness first. And so it's very important in relationships that, first of all, you secure time with yourself, and that every day you have time with yourself to keep your own energy up. And then when you enter the sphere of relationships, the pose in Raja Yoga, one of the other practices of meditation, is fueled by the understanding that I am a being that is an actor playing a part through this costume. I have my unique part, you have your unique part, and that we're part of a much unlimited play. And so when somebody else is playing their part in a play, I don't interfere. I let them play their part. I don't take it personally, but I play my part. And so the practice of being a detached observer is very, very important in relationships. Most people, they have their own karmic package and their own karmic life. And they, at the end of the day, every single person has to find solutions to their own karmic situations or problems, we call them. They're not actually problems, they're just karmic pickles. And so every person has to find their own way out of it. And when people are in a lot of pain and hurt, they just dump all their stuff on you. And then we are led to believe we have to save them and rescue them, when actually we don't. Because what people want is they want to feel supported. They want to have a good vibration from us. So they just require us to be in a good vibration so that they can realize what they have to do. But for us to stay in a place of neutrality and be ourselves, one of the practices that's very helpful to maintain self-respect is the subject of being a detached observer. Now, why I say this is because studies in science have shown very clearly, and also in the field of psychosomatic, is that the immune system is affected by grief and by a sense of loss. And these two emotions are most experienced in human relationships. When we've gotten attached to people, when we feel we've lost somebody, or we've lost an idea, or we've lost a bit, loss and grief, they lock our immunity. They kind of prevent our immune system from kicking into gear. And so we need a pose and we need a practice in daily life that protects us from absorbing sorrow. Sometimes we know that ethically, morally, it's good not to give sorrow. But do you know that it's equally as important not to take sorrow? And somehow, because we don't safeguard, we don't hold ourselves in a particular pose, we leave ourselves open to every vibration out there. And so we become sponges to absorb grief and loss. And something that's small can then feel very big. And so the practice of being a detached observer, when that's practiced again and again, it really helps us to remain in a free and neutral space, but a loving space. So it's not that we're detached and cold, but we are detached and loving. People will experience the vibration of our inner being and qualities more. And so I'd like to take you into the pose that we practice in Raj Yoga that's linked to being a detached observer. And if in your relationships, if you're a businessman in your meetings, you have some time, just step into this pose, hold yourself in this place and watch. And you will be in a much better place to choose what you take in and what you give out, so that you don't let yourself be pulled by the expectations of others. And so once again, I'd like you to just sit back in your chair. And just take a couple of deep breaths in and out. And as you breathe in and out, enjoy being in this present moment now. Feel the whole body relaxing from your feet, your legs, your knees, your stomach, your chest, shoulders, arms. Breathe and release all tension. And just allow yourself to become fully present in this moment now. And now, let's turn our attention inwards. And this time, I want you to walk into the room of your mind. Open the door of the room and walk inside, and it's a wonderful open room. Visualize the room as you would like it. What would the room look like in which you could be most comfortable? Now imagine in the center of the room, there's a comfortable chair. Go and sit down. And this chair is opposite some tall windows. And as you relax into that chair, you release everything of the day, all the masks, all the roles, and this is time to be yourself. And as you look out of the windows, you see a busy world moving by, a street with lots of cars, people walking, talking. It's a windy day. Trees are bending in the wind. And yet, you become aware of the quietness and stillness inside. You are inside, and everything else is outside. inside your comfortable room, there is space and there is peace. There is calmness. And so you are inside and everything else is outside. It's as if you're watching the world go by. And in this moment, you are sitting in the seat of being a detached observer of life. It's a seat of easiness, of good feeling, of comfort. And from the security of your inner room, you watch what is happening outside. Hold yourself in this pose of being a detached observer for a few moments now. And let yourself experience the peace and calmness inside. From this place, you can choose who you want to let into your room and how you wish to engage with them. This is completely in your hands. Thank you. So the more you take time to strengthen this particular position every day of being a detached observer, it will help you sustain your self-respect in relationships and prevent you from absorbing any sorrow or grief that will eventually compromise your immunity. And just the last subject of self-respect and the task. We all have many, many things to do. This is the complaint that many people have. I have so much to do. And so people are busy, but in that busyness, they're not focused, they're not purposeful. These people don't know sometimes why they're doing what they're doing. So it's very, very important in your day-to-day life concerning your work that you have priorities, that you are doing what you are meant to be doing, not minding anybody else's business. Because sometimes we can spend so much time trying to help everybody else that what we have to do gets left behind. So I would suggest that it's extremely important, first thing in the morning, to make a list and to be clear about what you need to do and to make sure that you accomplish that. And then, of course, if there's any space left over, you're free and available for others. But if you don't stay on top of what you have to do, that burden of lagging behind, of procrastinating, that also has an effect on your self-respect and consequentially on your immunity. Now, let's say you've done that. You've prioritized, you've taken time in the morning peacefully to see what are the things today that need my attention. Just be very natural with it. Don't force yourself, I should be doing this, I should be doing that. It doesn't work like that. Sometimes there are things in your life that don't need you at this point. You might think you need to be everywhere, but they don't need you. But if you sit in quiet in the morning with yourself, and from that place of being inside at peace, just feel, what is it that needs my attention today? And just note that down. Because your conscience will tell you. It's picking up the vibration of where you are going to be needed. And so that will give you a very natural flow for the day, and a focus for the day. And then as we go about our day and we're doing our activity, another pose of yoga, intellectual yoga, that's very important and very powerful in Raj Yoga. It's what we call the full stop pose. It's what we call the traffic control moment, where you manage the expansion of your thoughts about what you're doing. We lose mental energy because we overthink. It's as simple as that. And if we can't control the brake of our intellect, then we, just by the nature of overthinking about something, we get trapped in it. And that's why when we go home, we can't leave this behind, because we've just thought about it so much that our identity is completely trapped in it, that we take it wherever we go, in the bathroom, at home, in the bedroom, and we can't shake it off. So this practice is so, so important. You can do whatever you want, whatever you want in the day, but if you adhere to this one practice, it will keep you free at the end of the day. You will be able to walk away from what you do and not let it follow you home, for example. And this particular practice is the full stop moment. It's literally just this. Apply two words, a not and a dot. So this is the mantra I'm going to give you. So a not is just check in this moment, what I'm thinking, what I'm speaking, and I'm doing. Is that necessary right now? If it isn't, apply a not, put a dot to it, and move on. So it's literally about continuing to put a brake on things that are not beneficial. And it's very, very helpful to stop at least a few times in the day. Yeah, for those of us that have a reflective practice, we do stop in the day. I know in the Middle Eastern countries, we have the beautiful times for namaz, time for prayer times. Those are moments to stop and reflect and redirect yourself. And it's very important to just stop the controlled traffic of your thoughts about something. So let's practice this for a moment. Wherever we are in this moment, I'm just going to invite you into a moment of silence. And in this moment of silence, I'd like you to just imagine your thoughts like a web, and that web is being swallowed up into a point. You are a point of energy. Release yourself. Shake off those extra thoughts. Just let them go by and become the point inside. And so as I let all my energy come into the essence of a point of light, this energy I take into the next moment. Now I can choose how much of my thoughts to apply on something. I don't have to overthink everything. And once again, make yourself the point. Pull all your inner energy into a dot, a point of light. Thank you. One last note before I close. It's so important to understand that as human beings, we are integrated in a much bigger game plan. And that game plan is us, the higher, the divine, the supreme, God, whatever you may wish to call that energy, and the drama of life. There is a balance sheet. There is a movement of nature that is happening around us, of circumstances that are playing themselves out as we evolve. And so for me to understand that I am not in control of everything that is outside me, and that I can influence what happens, but I can't control it. And so how does that affect the way I deal with things? When something and everything outside me has its own moment of change. So me worrying about it is not going to make it change faster. Everything in nature has its time for change. We can't push nature to change. It's the same with our human bodies. It's the same with human relationships. It has its own moment in time for change. So let me respect that space and not fill that space with unnecessary thoughts about people or things that I can't change. That's very, very important at this time. So as you continue to clean up your life, first starting with yourself, in your relationships, with your work, I sincerely hope that these 3 practices of mental yoga will support that process of integration so that you can truly build a solid foundation of self-respect that can support your overall well-being and especially strengthen your immunity to face challenging times. Thank you very much for listening, and I wish you all the best in everything you do.
So a small question like, yes, in this pandemic situation, everyone are being asked to increase their immunity system. So you took us into the different aspect of the immunity. So people think of like building their muscles or making their bodies strong. But until and unless we are mentally strong enough, when we are not in our self-respect, we can see that people even who are young adults, so they are not having any diseases other than that. So with just even the mental stress, they are dying. So even this is very much important. So how you really say that like mental stress means is more affecting with that situation. So it's very clear that is really helping us a lot.
Well, you know, one addition to this is that there are 3 steps. When I practice this yoga, I'm holding my energy. It's me as a being, and the energy of my being is flooding my mind with good feelings. And so it's keeping my feelings good. When we don't practice being enough, then our mental energy scatters everybody. We overthink about things, we do things. And what we do is that the influence we absorb, it changes our feelings and we become emotional. So our emotional well-being, our mental well-being fluctuates and our emotions go down. And when that gets affected, it has an impact on freezing our immunity. So people who don't practice being enough, right? Really being enough, they cannot develop mental strength and emotional well-being. And so all the different poses I was describing today are very much poses of being. And just as much as we exercise all the physiological aspects and we learn new skills and we think new ideas, we've got to exercise the being inside, the ability to hold ourselves in silence, in peace, in love, in freedom. And the more we strengthen that ability, it has an automatic effect on our mental well-being and emotional well-being.
So for this, as a small tip, every day, what as an individual need to do in that way to
I
strengthen?
would suggest that every day it's really important, and now it's non-negotiable. People have to take time out in the morning and in the evening for a little bit of meditation time, being time. Because science tells us that when you wake up, in the first 10 minutes of waking up, whatever thoughts you think and feelings you have, it sets your mood for the whole day. And we know that mood is a very powerful thing. If you're in a good mood, everything's great. Even if it's rainy, it's great. But if you're in a bad mood, even if it's a sunny day, it feels terrible. So in the morning, the first 10, 15 minutes of your morning, make those precious. Create a beautiful space in your home, play some music, play a commentary, lift yourself in the morning. Good morning, self. Good morning, God. Think good thoughts in those first 10, 15 minutes. Really feel good in those 10, 15 minutes. Not good morning mobile phone, where you're listening to everybody else's thoughts and everybody else's rubbish, but good morning self. So stay away from your mobile phone. And then the second thing is at the end of the day, before you go to sleep, because science also tells us that during sleep, whatever you have in your short-term memory goes into your long-term memory when you sleep. And so in the day, we pick up so many things in our short-term memory. And if we don't clean that out, then when we go to bed, our subconscious mind is working overtime to organize everything. And so we have dreams and we have nightmares and we don't feel good. We don't feel like we've slept. And so very important, 10, 15 minutes at the end of the day, we just wipe the slate. We give everything up, give it to the universe. I've done my best today. And scene 1, act 1 of the drama is over today. So tomorrow scene 2 will start. And as I spend those 10, 15 minutes just relaxing the mind, taking my hands off everything, refreshing the mind, and then going to sleep, I will wake up refreshed and empowered. If I go to sleep with a heavy mind and a tired mind, I will wake up like that. So that's my recommendation.
Thank you very much, because usually when they do yoga as a part of it, they do meditation also. It's not just sitting in silence. You suggested that our thoughts should also be powerful enough. Thank you very much for joining us today. In that sense, there many joined on YouTube, and Arabic translation is also going on. So hope everyone enjoyed. And on behalf of Raj Yoga Center and Embassy of India, thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much. Namaste.
Namaste. Have a great day.